and then the petty bourgeois, the middle layers, they can't see a future with the left. They can't see the left ever being able to take power, so they turn in desperation to the right. But what you've seen with Mélenchon is the ability of the left to cut across the right. Far from people moving from the left to the right, you've actually seen things go the other way. You've seen Mélenchon's campaign start at 10% in the polls and end up at 20%. This is against a barrage of media nonsense, basically, claiming that he's going to turn France into Cuba or Venezuela at a time when obviously there's all sorts of crisis and instability manufactured by imperialism and the capitalists and so on in Venezuela. All this propaganda being thrown against him, and still he managed to increase his vote by 10% over the course of the campaign. And of course, he got 3 million more votes than he got in 2012 when he ran, and actually he would have got more votes than Le Pen. This is another important lesson from these events. Another important point. He would have got more votes than Le Pen, not by much, by about 10,000 votes, but nevertheless more, as in he would have been in the second round, had there not been two ultra-left, sectarian left candidates, basically. Left groups who ran candidates against Mélenchon and the rest of the field. And that caused the vote to be split, and the result was that Mélenchon didn't get those votes, which would have propelled him into the second round against Macron. This is a lesson about ultra-leftism. I don't have time to develop the point now. We can discuss it more in the discussion. But this is criminal behaviour by people on the left who should have been in the Mélenchon campaign. But Mélenchon's rise, this move from 10% in the polls to 20%, it was really meteoric. Really, when you look at the detail of the vote that he actually got, it paints a really powerful picture of the mood in French society, particularly amongst young people and the working class. He got 30% of the vote amongst 18 to 24-year-olds. Almost 1 in 3 people in that age group voted for Mélenchon, more than any other candidate. He won that age group across the whole of France. And then he also won the most votes in 4 out of the 10 largest cities in France, including, and this is particularly significant, including Marseille and Montpellier, 2 cities that are in that region of southeastern France that traditionally is a Front National heartland. And Marseille in particular has always been a stronghold for Le Pen and the National Front. But Mélenchon was able to win there. And he was able to win in Toulouse. He got 29%. In Lille, these are the 4 big cities where he won. And in 3 more cities, major cities, he came second in Strasbourg, Bordeaux and Nantes. So 7 out of the 10 largest cities in France, Mélenchon came either first or second. And this was the pattern like all across France. In workers' districts, for example, in Paris, like in the suburbs, on the outskirts of Paris, he came first in these places. In Le Havre, in the north, on the northern coastline, this was a town, this was a city that was one of the epicenters of the movement against the El Khomri law. He increased his vote on 2012 by 13%. It was a massive, and he won that district. The pattern generally is that he won amongst the youth, and in the advanced areas where the class struggle is most advanced, and in the epicenters like the proletarian heartlands, the big cities and so on. This is where Mélenchon won his votes. And of course he was strong actually in overseas territories as well. Particularly the one of most significance is Guyana, where they had a massive unlimited general strike just last month. And Mélenchon, and that obviously developed the class struggle, raised class consciousness, and as a result, people voted for Mélenchon. And our own comrades in France, members of the International Marxist Tendency in France, they've been reporting on the general mood, and the mood in workplaces, unionized workplaces, cafes, just the general discussion in shops, on the street. Everybody has been talking about Mélenchon and his campaign. And particularly, they said actually, among Arabic immigrants of Arabic origin, almost all of them were saying that they were going to vote for Mélenchon, that he was their candidate. And so you see this, you can see this picture of a general like grassroots campaign, which was inspiring hundreds of thousands, millions of people to go to rallies, to get organised, and all the rest of it, all on the basis of a very radical program, a left-wing program. Mélenchon was arguing for a 32-hour week in France. For the standard in France has been 35-hour week. The capitalists want to get rid of that. The bourgeois want to get rid of that. But Mélenchon is arguing for a 32-hour week, and he's arguing for this kind of thing in a very radical way. A very radical. He talks about he was talking in his campaign about how the rich were trembling at the movement that he had created. You know, they were trembling at the thought that he would get into power, and it was all very much us and them, haves and have-nots, and this kind of thing. And actually, so another lesson that we can take from this is a lesson for Corbyn's general election campaign here. Mélenchon based himself on, as I said, the media were against him. So he went for social media. There was a massive social media campaign for Mélenchon. He based himself on grassroots community organizing. He encouraged people. The campaign encouraged people to set up local organising groups to campaign for his election, and massive rallies as well. Rallies which even so tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people attended these rallies where he was talking very fiery language and all the rest of it. And even in the places where he wasn't able to go personally, he used holograms. He projected holograms of himself, which thousands of people turned out to watch. But this kind of thing, not carefully crafted media sound bites, not Hillary Clinton style small focus groups or anything like this. Massive rallies, get people excited, talk in a radical way. This is the kind of stuff that Jeremy Corbyn needs to be doing now. So this was the situation with the election. Obviously, Mélenchon didn't win. He came just fourth, more or less equal with Fillon on 19.6% or something, 19.8%, something like that. And so we're faced then in France with a second round between Macron and Le Pen, a former Rothschild banker and a far-right reactionary demagogue. And so just like in 2002 in France, where you were faced with Chirac and Le Pen, you're faced with a right-winger and a right-winger. Basically, there's no choice from the working class point of view. And like in 2002, as soon as this happened, everybody from the bourgeois to the liberal lefts has begun talking about the need to vote for Macron as the lesser evil of the two. And this chorus has been joined by the Socialist Party. Well, what else do you expect? They've spent however many years betraying the working class. They're going to continue to do so. And so they've joined this chorus. The Green Party has done so. And most scandalously of all, the Communist Party in France is calling for a vote for Macron. And we have to call this exactly what it is. This is a betrayal, a terrible betrayal of the working class by people who claim to represent them. Because Macron, I mean, we should look at what this lesser evil actually looks like. He is in favour of allowing bosses individually, not nationally or anything else, individual bosses to renegotiate the 35-hour week, breaking up the bargaining power of the working class. And effectively, it's going to be an abolition of the 35-hour week. He's in favour of sacking thousands of public servants, and he's in favour of lowering corporation tax breaks for the rich, effectively. This is the programme of Fillon, dressed up in kind of a liberal language, but nevertheless it's the programme of the right, of the bourgeois. He is a direct continuation of the policies of Hollande and Sarkozy before him. There's nothing whatsoever. His election will mean a massive attack on the working class, and there is no way of dressing that up as something progressive. There is no, so anyone calling for a vote for Macron is demanding that the working class support someone who will attack them, who will strip away their rights and everything else. There is no way that anyone on the left can legitimately support that kind of position. Because Le Pen and the Front National, we should point this out when people, because it's inevitable, we will hear this from people, oh, we have to support Macron as the lesser evil. We should point out that Le Pen and the Front National, they grow in the conditions created by people like Macron, created by Hollande and Sarkozy. Who is responsible in the United States, for example? Who is responsible for Donald Trump winning the election, for Donald Trump being able to win that election? It's Obama who's responsible. It's the US establishment that has created the conditions in which the rhetoric and the approach of somebody like Trump can win an election. And the same is true in France. Our French comrades have used the phrase that you don't stop a fire by voting for the arsonist. And that's exactly what a vote for Macron would be. He wouldn't put a stop to any of the problems that have given rise to the National Front in the first place. And of course, I mentioned the United States. That was a clear failure of lesser evilism. Nobody, that was the main plank, the main argument for the Democrats, for Clinton in the election, is that she's not Trump. And that was not enough. People were not interested in that. They don't want more of the same. They don't want the same old establishment politics. They want something different. And if the way is blocked on the left, people will swing to the right. We are in this period of collapse of the centre ground and polarisation. And already in France, now you're seeing protests, particularly of young people, with the slogan of neither Trump, neither Macron nor Le Pen. And so just today in France, 500 people in Paris, 2,000 people in Rennes. I say people, well, and they are people, but they're high school students. That's the point. They're young and they're extremely radical, and they're disgusted by the choice that has been presented to the people of France by the second round. And the police have met these protests, by the way, with tear gas, with a lot of violence. That's only going to radicalise people even more. And so I think this is the layer with the highest kind of consciousness. They recognise that there is no choice available here for people, and I think you're likely to see in the second round a high rate of abstention. At the moment, the polls put Macron on 60% and Le Pen on 40%. But if she keeps up, she's a clever, in the same way that Trump is clever. She knows what she's doing, and this stunt with the tumble dryer factory, like you get a few more of those, with Macron looking like a bit of a fool, Le Pen talking about anti-establishment politics. One thing she has said now, in the face of this coalition of everybody from Fillon to the Communist Party leaders calling for a vote for Macron, she is using that to say, look, that's the establishment there. They all hate me. They've all got you can see now that they're all actually exactly the same, and they all want exactly the same thing. And I'm the only one who's standing against them. She's using this kind of this broad coalition of traitors, of class traitors, to bolster her position, her anti-establishment credentials. So I think it's not a done deal that Macron will. I think it's by far the most likely perspective, but it's not certain. But it's not least because I think you will see a high rate of abstention, and so I think rather than Le Pen necessarily winning it, you could see Macron losing it. I think it's possible, although as I say, unlikely. But in any case, we should also point out longer term, beyond the second round of the election. Even if Macron does win, when he got through to the second round instead of Mélenchon, the stock markets went up. There was this audible sigh of relief amongst the bourgeois. All these articles came out about how great Macron is and all this sort of thing. And the BBC was producing endless profiles of him and so on. But Gideon Rachman, who's a journalist for the Financial Times, who's a little bit more far-sighted than a lot of journalists, obviously